wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Welcome to our 10th class on this international relations philosophy class. And today we will be discussing about the level of analysis in international relations. As always in our faculty, we start off by reciting the Quran. Okay, and let's just read one ayah. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Wa idh najaynakum min ali fir'auna yasumunakum su'al 'adabi yudabbihuna abna'akum wa yastahyuna nisa'akum wa fi dhalikum bala'un min rabbikum 'azim. Okay, thank you very much, and we move on to the prayer before we start the lesson. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa zidna 'ilma. May Allah benefit us with the knowledge that we learn and to be able to implement it in our daily lives. And next we will move on to our session today, talking about the level of analysis in international relations. Okay, let's just, okay, you could see the screen, right? Let's just do a little prologue. In international relations, we have two kinds of actors. And why is this course important? Because the philosophy of international relations and the level of analysis in general will be very useful for students to make their research proposal as well as for their final requirement for graduation, which is undergraduate thesis or scriptsy. If you don't understand the subject, then it will be a challenge for you to make your proposal, research proposal. The level of analysis in international relations. I always tell my students that whenever you make a research, it has to be about the action of an international relations actor. Now, the international relations actor are divided into two: state actors and non-state actors. State actors, you name it, all of the UN member states, there are around 197 something countries in the world, those are state actors. The non-state actors, there are plenty of them, including multinational corporations, non-governmental organizations, and there are also even individuals and belligerents. So anyone who is capable of following the international law or disobeying the international law, and they make actions which have an international impact, they are called international relations actors. Okay, now when you already understand that there are two kinds of actors in international relations, let's apply the actions of these actors within the levels of analysis in international relations. Let's give an example. We have at least 3 levels of analysis in international relations. To make time short, I don't have to mention the resources. You could check it in our syllabus. Number 1, the individual level of analysis. Individual level of analysis talks about an international relations actor's personality as an individual. For example, state actors such as a president of a country, a prime minister, a foreign minister. Non-state actors such as social activists, their visions, their goals in mind, their actions. All of these perceptions, personality, choices, and activities of international relations actors, if you look at it from an individual point of view, then you need to understand what individual factors drive them to make such decisions and to make such actions. Is it their educational background? Maybe it could be their affiliation to a certain social group, or it could be their belief system and how their experience, their past experience influenced their decision making. Next, we look at the state level of analysis. Now let's just distinguish clearly between the state kind of actor and the state level of analysis. When we talk about the actor of international relations as a state, it means countries. When we look at the state level of analysis, it means The state level means whether state actors or non-state actors, but the level or the scope of the case is actually in a certain country. So you will not examine or analyze cases related to other countries, only in a specific country. So let's look at the state character, economic system, and national interest. How do you correlate international relations cases in a setting limited to a state? It could be, for example, some of my students make research about how Indonesia implements, let's say, the UNODC, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime protocol on combating illicit drugs trafficking, for example. So it's an international regulation, but implemented by a certain state. This is a state level of analysis, because you will not do a research about other countries. You will focus on Indonesia, but on Indonesia's efforts on implementing an international treaty, which is UNODC, on countering drugs trafficking. And next, we move on to the international system of level, which talks about norms, rules, alliances, regional organizations. Okay, now this is it comes to different perspectives such as neoliberalism and also constructivism. When we talk about norms and rules, we talk about constructivist perspective, which means countries, they come together in an international system, in an international setting, they make agreements, and they also collaborate on certain policies because they have the same norms and the same rules, the same values and understanding that certain policies need to be taken for common prosperity of the world, such as environmental policies, the Paris Agreement 2015, let's say. And the other examples are regional organizations. We talk about ASEAN, European Union, Mercosur, African Union, Organization of Islamic Countries, that's Islamic Cooperation. All of these regional and segmented organizations are international organizations with an international setting, but they come together for mutual interests. Let's say for the region, the region's economic development. And this is when it comes to neoliberalist perspective that cooperation between states require an institution to be established for the success of the cooperation. Okay, that's probably all about the levels, the different definitions of level of analysis in three different stages: individual, states, and international system. Let's move on to the purposes of LoA. Okay, we talk about reflections. Students need to understand, why do we learn about the level of analysis? Number one, to avoid logical fallacies or misleading ideas. I'll give you an example of a logical fallacy and misleading idea. Okay, because some students, they want to talk about extradition. You know extradition, right? The policy between two countries, the bilateral agreement to transfer the criminal who ran away to the other country. Okay, and they get swayed into making something research according to the law, the study of law, which is not really relevant to international relations, because law only talks about what is correct and what is not correct in terms of implementing extradition. But in international relations perspective, we talk furthermore. What are the interests of the countries who are engaged in this bilateral extradition agreement? So this is a logical fallacy. You use the perspective of law in an international relations case. It's not correct. Second, to make logical deduction, general to specific. Okay, it's like generalizing logical deduction, which is something general to something specific. And the third one is to explore complicated problems. Okay, some of these logical deduction, let's say there is a student who makes a research about ASEAN member states. Okay, ASEAN member states. How does ASEAN, or Association of Southeast Asian Nations member states, implement COVID-19 policies domestically? And then from that, from examining 10 countries of the ASEAN member states, we can make a general conclusion that in Southeast Asia, the Asian member states have a common policy towards COVID-19 restrictions, such as, let's say, proportional lockdown, but not complete lockdown. So that's kind of another way of using level of analysis. And regional level of analysis, such as ASEAN, is in between the international system and state level, regional level. And the third one is to explore complicated problems. So yes, and if you want to quote other books which mention other levels of analysis, you still have to explain why you choose this particular one and how it is distinct from previous researchers. Also define it as group of states level. Okay, so group of states level, the idea is that you still use state level of analysis, but relating different states altogether. So it's in between state and international system. And the other level of analysis is in between individual and state level, which is group of individuals. Or we call it groups. This is useful for examining cases such as a social movement. Okay, there's a difference between social movement and mass movement. If it's a mass movement, you don't have the leader usually. Usually it's issue driven by a certain issue like Black Lives Matter or something. But if it's social movement, usually you have the leader, and then you have the clear goal of this movement, the aspiration, what they want, and all this. You can use the group level of analysis. If you only talk about the leader of that organization, it will be individual. But if it's about the leader and the influences of the leader in driving the group, so that the group has a certain action, and the group can be considered an international relations actor, yes, you may use group level of analysis. Okay, so things differ, and some scholars reject Professor Mukhtar Masud's idea. For example, like in my master degree university, I will not mention the name, we do not accept that book. But in my undergraduate university, we quote that book. So it's still debatable between scholars. The basic level of analysis are these three. You may add other two in between, but it's optional which one you are using. So the real conclusion of today's lecture is about reflecting that students need to understand which level of analysis you choose to use in doing your assignment and research, and why you choose that. You have to explain. And if you want to quote other books which mention other levels of analysis, you still have to explain why you choose this particular one and how it is distinct from previous researches in your literature review. Thank you very much. I guess that's all from me. We end the session. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.